Welcome back to another episode of True Untold Nightmares. It's your host, Chris Moss. And today, for our Nightmare Buffet episode, I have some very creepy, very interesting encounters, especially from a source that I never thought that I would get encounters from, which is a homeless person. I work at a gas station as my second job, so we get homeless people coming through all the time. But the things that he shared with me that he has seen over the years from being homeless, it's jaw-dropping, honestly. It really is. But before I get into that and into the other encounters that I have for you tonight, send me an email if you've had an encounter or you know somebody who's had an encounter. I don't care how crazy, quote-unquote crazy, the encounter may sound or may seem. Send your encounter anyway, and let's try to figure this thing out together. If you would like to come onto the show and share your encounter, you're free to do that. You can be I can't speak. You can be as anonymous as you want to be. It's up to you. You can give me a fake name or not, or use no name at all. You're in control of that. Join the Facebook group, True Untold Nightmares. You can message me there. Follow me on Instagram, True Untold Nightmares. You can also message me there. Oh, and my email is chrismoss1@outlook.com. The email will be on the video screen, and it will be in the description below the video as well. To kick us off, I'm going to start with two encounters that my fiance's cousin shared with her. Now, I don't have a lot of detail because it was shared over the phone to my fiance, and I was at work. Because if I would have been there on the phone call, she would have told me right then, I would have had a bunch of questions. But I haven't gotten a chance to talk to the cousin to get more in-depth detail. The cousin's been busy. So the minute I get more details for these two encounters, I will let you guys know in another episode. But the first encounter that she shared with her was that she lives in Discovery Bay here in California. She was coming home late one night. She got to a stoplight, and when she stopped at the light, this really tall man walked the crosswalk in front of her car. And she said this dude was really big, like he was really tall, but he was transparent. You could see right through this guy. Like he was walking right in front of her car, right across the crosswalk, and you could see right through him, and he didn't even acknowledge her. He didn't acknowledge the car. He walked across and then he disappeared. And her cousin, I don't know if she scares easily, but, she said it freaked her out, but she wasn't too scared. And apparently that's a popular stoplight. Like apparently multiple people have seen this tall ghost before. Now what the ghost was wearing, what did he look like? Those are the details I'm talking about that I have to get later. I also realized that at the beginning of me telling this story, the location of where the cousin lives, she didn't share that with my fiance because obviously we know that, but I was sharing that with you guys. That was info for you guys, but just listening back to it, I was like, oh, it made it sound like she got on the phone and was like, hey, guess what? I live in Discovery Bay. It's like, no, that was just a tidbit for you guys, the listeners. Now, the second story she shared was that her neighbor, I don't know how long ago, once again, that's details I need to get, but she said a while back, apparently her neighbor told her that she was chased by a floating knife. Like basically she was in her kitchen and it was like somebody picked up the knife, but somebody she couldn't see picked up the knife and chased her with it. And once again, I don't have details, so that's pretty much where that story ends. But I just wanted to share it with you guys because when I heard it, my ears perked up. It's like a disembodied knife, like being chased in your house or around the kitchen by a disembodied knife. Like, honestly, that's pretty scary. But once I see the cousin again, once I get a chance to talk to her, I am going to get more updates on these two stories because I actually do want to know more. But earlier, I mentioned that she lives in Discovery Bay because I did some digging. Disembodied knife, really tall ghost just walking around. Honestly, I figured there must be something with this land that these things are happening. Um, so I did some digging for Discovery Bay, and apparently, Discovery Bay is on top of a Native American burial ground. There are many Native American burial grounds in Discovery Bay alone. But once I found that out, that honestly explained a lot. But hey, if you're listening and you are from Discovery Bay or you lived in Discovery Bay for a little bit, and you've been chased or you've been chased by a disembodied object or been chased by anything really, go ahead and shoot me an email and tell me your encounter. Now, these next three encounters are UFO encounters, and this first one is from a person that lives out in the country and loves looking up at the stars without the interference of city lights, street lights, and all that. The night sky is really clear, and you can see all the stars, and they're really bright. Well, one day while looking up at the night sky, they see a shooting star. But then this shooting star stops mid-shoot. You know that little arch shooting stars make when they're going across the sky? Yeah, picture that, but the star stops midway, as if somebody pressed pause on the shooting star. Now, this person said after it stopped midway, it started to shoot around in different directions before shooting off to the left at a speed that no man-made aircraft can reach. Now, they've never seen anything like this before, nor after whatever this shooting star situation was. But it definitely opened their minds to a whole different perspective on life and just the world we live in. I personally think it definitely was a UFO because a common trait you see with UFOs is that they move at a speed that is unmatched. But to see a shooting star stop midway, like stop and then just start shooting in different directions, if it was, an UFO, why was it going in different directions? You know what I mean? It's like, why was it doing this little, like, why was it spazzing out and then decides to shoot to the left? Why not just, stop midway and then shoot to the left and call it a day? Like, what is all the shooting in different directions for, I wonder? I don't know. It's weird. It's a bit freaky to think about because it's like, okay, well, where did it go? Did it abduct somebody? It's just a lot of unanswered questions. This second UFO encounter that I received is short, but I want to share it anyway because it's interesting and maybe it'll help us come even an inch closer to making sense of this UFO business. One day this person saw a ball of green light going across the sky at a steady pace, and then all of a sudden it stops midair and just shoots straight up into the sky, or up into space rather, at an insane speed. Now, this person said they never saw anything like it ever again. But once again, what is, that insane speed is one pattern among UFO sightings. Never seeing it again or never seeing anything like it before is also a pattern. Some people do see multiple UFOs across their life. Some never see it and some see it only once. But then the thing that intrigues me is I feel like every time I hear about a UFO sighting, they come in there's so many different shapes that they come in. Like, for example, the first UFO encounter I just told you didn't see a shape, but it looked like a shooting star. So I'm gonna guess like maybe it was ball shaped, or it was whatever shape it was. It from far away it resembled a shooting star. Now this second encounter, it's a ball of green light. So Was the UFO itself a ball, or maybe it was projecting, light in a ball shape around it, and maybe the UFO itself was a different shape? I don't know. But in this third UFO encounter, a guy shared with me that back in the early 2000s, his little brother woke him up in the middle of the night talking about, he sees a bright object in the sky from his window. Now, half asleep, he said he got smart with him and was just like, yeah, that bright thing in the sky is called a moon. His little brother was 7. He's like, he probably had a nightmare being a kid. I don't know, the moon probably spooked him. It's probably a full moon, brighter than usual, whatever, go back to bed. But his brother responded with, the moon's not shaped like an A. The moon is circular. So thinking, all right, kid, you're going to persist on this, whatever. Not thinking, remember, it's middle of the night, he's half asleep. He didn't really register or process that his brother basically just said the thing outside his window is shaped like an A. So he said he went to, he got up to go check it to also make sure no weirdo was outside playing with a flashlight or something. Now, when he got to his brother's window faces a pond. Like there's a pond off in the distance. Not too far, but it's off in the distance. He said the second he looked out his brother's window, what he saw scared the hell out of him. Because what he saw was a glowing white boomerang-shaped UFO. But he said the glow on this thing wasn't harsh. Like it wasn't super bright and blinding like a flashlight. If you shine them super bright, high quality flashlights, you know how harsh that light is when you flash into somebody's face? It wasn't like that. He said the glow on this thing was like a soft pulsating glow. And it was hovering right above the pond. And he said the size of this thing was like a little smaller than, a fighter jet, like from the Air Force or something. It was a little smaller than that, than a jet. And all of a sudden, he said this thing just shot straight up into the air. Like in a blink of an eye, this thing just went just straight up. And he doesn't know, to this day, he doesn't know what to make of it. That image is forever seared into his mind. Now, he said he talked to his little brother about it, but his brother remembers it, but doesn't. Because the times that he has brought it up, like, hey, you remember that boomerang shaped thing? And his brother is like, not really. But then his brother would be like, yeah, you know what? Matter of fact, I think I had a dream about that. And he's trying to tell his little brother that wasn't no damn dream. That actually happened. But to his brother, it's foggy. It's like, it felt like a dream, but the most interesting part about this story is the UFO itself. But the interesting thing about this encounter is how it doesn't make a sound. Like, all 3 of these encounters talks about it shooting off at an insane speed, especially for the last 2 encounters, this one and the one before it. These aircrafts are taking off at an insane speed, right? But there's no sound that follows. Because you know how fighter jets break the sound barrier? You see the jet and then you hear the sound, seconds later behind it? You would think that would happen with UFOs, right? Because to move faster than a fighter jet, that means you're more than just breaking the sound barrier. You obliterated it. I don't know. That's weird, right? But also, the glow. And once again, the different shapes. Like this one's a boomerang shape. The second encounter was a ball of light. First encounter, it resembled a shooting star. So now my question is, are these different races of aliens? Are these whoever the hell is in these aircrafts, UFOs? Are they, I don't know, different species, different races? Are they all the same, but just have different cars, kind of like we do? Kind of like, You can be, like, I don't know, let's say you're a millionaire, how millionaires have multiple cars. Is it a situation like that where they just have all these different shaped UFOs parked in their space garage or something? I don't know. It's interesting to think about, like, what am I going to drive today? The boomerang or the ball? But I don't know. I would love to get more UFO stories, abduction stories, to kind of try to get more sense made into, to get some more understanding of these encounters. But it's perplexing. Ooh, I can't talk today. It's perplexing. It really is. That something that moves that fast doesn't make a sound. And the glow on the boomerang, like, if this is, to have a bright light, but even with a soft glow, you would think that that glow would envelop more than just its immediate surrounding. Like, it would hit multiple houses and wake up multiple people, and then you have multiple people looking out the window and like, what the hell is that? You know? So they move fast, no sound. Apparently the glow from their spacecraft is superior to ours in that it can glow but not bother people. It's soft enough that it doesn't bother anybody, but it's also noticeable if you see it. The other thing too is, apparently, at least with the boomerang shaped UFO, whatever aliens are in there, whatever species, apparently they're not afraid of water. So the War of the Worlds theory, or War of the Worlds, and what was that other movie? Signs. I think Signs is another one where it's like water is dangerous to them. They're afraid of water. Whatever the hell is in that boomerang shaped UFO, they don't give a damn about no water because they're hovering over it. And then what were they doing sitting there hovering? Were they plotting? Did they just take somebody? Plotting on taking somebody? Were they asleep? Was whatever's inside recharging? Were they watching the house with the brothers in it? And then once they noticed that, oh crap, they're watching us, let's get the heck up out of here. Our cover's blown. Like, what's up with that? I don't know. It's always weird to think that when you see a UFO sighting, is an abduction not far behind? Like, when you see it, what's their agenda? What are they doing? Or this is probably leaning on conspiracy theory, but is these aircrafts not alien in nature, but I don't know, Area 51, some other secret military base? Are we creating these aircrafts? You know what I mean? Like, are we secretly creating these aircrafts? Maybe, I don't know, the government is in contact with other species and they're working together on aircrafts, or maybe they struck a secret deal with the species that we don't know about to help them. Maybe they're trading people or information for resources. And now our militaries are secretly creating these aircrafts, you know what I mean? And testing it out on the public. I don't know. This is just a theory. I wouldn't put it past the government. But then again, it's like, what would be the reasoning for the government to test this aircraft on people? Like, why would you bring it that close to a neighborhood just to mess with whoever sees it at the time? Because if you're testing it for military purposes, wouldn't you do that? Kind of like the shooting star, wouldn't you do that in the middle of the night? And then too, if you're trying to be sneaky and you're the government, why are you putting bright lights on your craft where people can see it? You would think that you would turn the lights off on your craft, right? That way, even if you're looking at a clear night sky and it's zooming past, nobody's going to see it because it's cloaked by darkness. And then the other thing too is, if you're the government and working on crafts like this, one, why would you have the lights on to where people can see it? And two, did you guys not trade for, like, will the aliens not give you the information to stealth mode? I'm trying to think of the word. The thing that Predator does, the invisibility. Like, they didn't give you the resources to turn the aircrafts completely invisible, or, or they're not there yet with that either. I don't know. It's a lot of theories, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. All right. Now, the moment that you've all been patiently waiting for, the encounters that a homeless person has shared with me. As with every encounter I tell on this podcast, everything is allegedly true, and I treat it as such. I leave it up to you, the listener, whether or not you want to believe an encounter. It's not my place to tell you every encounter is true or false. I wasn't there with that person when it happened, so I treat every encounter as if it's true. And, my job is just to give the person a platform to share their encounter out to the world in a safe manner. And, maybe we can start putting pieces of the puzzle together the more we share. But without further ado, I'm going to get into the first thing that this homeless person told me. And I'll start with this one, because they're all good, all creepy, but I'll start with this one. Now, this homeless person told me that, they've been in California the last 15 or so years, but they used to live in Arizona. Now, when this person lived in Arizona, he said that one day he was roaming around, because he's like, hey, I'm homeless, So it's a lot of roaming. All we do is travel, from city to city on foot. We do what we got to do. One day he was in Arizona. And he was passing by, sometimes he crosses the freeway, which that's going to serve into another story later. But one day while traveling, he said he saw this coyote, and it was at night. It wasn't hella late. He said it was probably 11 o'clock at night. He said one day, he was walking along a street, and he was the only guy on it, and no cars were passing by, nothing like that. But on the side of the street was this forest, like a heavily wooded area. And he said this coyote was crossing the street. Now, this coyote, he said it comes out, it, starts walking across the street, and then the coyote turns and looks at him real quick, like coyotes do. Like, if they see your presence, they'll turn and look at you. He said all of a sudden, man, he said this damn coyote stood on two legs and started sprinting to the woods. And he said as soon as it started sprinting, he said chunks of fur was coming off of it. So basically, this coyote was shedding its fur. Stood up on two legs, man. This is exactly how he told it to me. He said it stood up. He said, dog, it stood up on two legs, sprinted to the woods, and chunks of fur were just falling off of it. And he said, and the damnedest thing is, the thing that I noticed besides the stand up on two legs and the fur falling off is this damn thing didn't have no tail. At first, he said when he saw it with no tail, he thought coyotes get into fights. They're like dogs, like dogs that live on the street for so long. You get into scraps and you lose an eye, or you lose a foot, or your foot, they're limping because one of their legs is broken because they got into a fight with another dog. So he thought, okay, this thing probably lost its tail in the fight. But he's like, man, he's like that. Honestly, that was the first damnedest thing I had ever seen. But he was like, honestly, man, he's like, I don't know what to make of it. But what I have seen after that, he's like, you're not even ready to hear about it. And this coyote thing happened, years ago when he lived in Arizona, before he came to California. But he said another thing that he has witnessed being homeless is that, staying on the topic of coyotes and dogs, he said, hey, man, he's like, honestly, I've seen a lot of scary shit out here. He said, but by far the scariest shit I've seen is, he was like, I don't know what to call it. he's like, I fucking saw a wolf on two legs, man. He said, I saw a wolf on two legs, and he said it honestly looked like this damn thing was carrying a body across its shoulder. He was like, I don't, because I asked him, I was like, okay, well, I'm like, I've heard stories like this before. I'm like, was it a deer like a dead deer? He was like, man, if it was a deer, it was either human, or if it was a deer, it was a doe. He was like, I ain't see no horns. He was like, all I saw was it had a body slumped over its shoulder. He said it was night. And honestly, he was staying, there was a, homeless camp nearby. He was like, man, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think that was no damn deer that thing was carrying across his shoulder. He's like, I honestly believe if that thing didn't kill somebody, or can I say kill on YouTube, unalive? If that thing didn't, well, I said it already, but if that thing didn't unalive somebody in that camp, he was like, homeless people pass away and they sleep all the time, so it's also possible that thing could have maybe grabbed a dead body. He goes, I don't know. All I know is I saw a wolf on two legs with a body over its shoulder, and the homeless camp is nearby. He's like, that's all I know. He was like, I don't, because the homeless camps are also in wooded areas. Like sometimes, in those little pockets of wooded areas on the freeway. I don't know if you guys see it. Like when you exit off ramps, sometimes you'll see a bunch of homeless tents there. I know in places like big cities like LA, there are homeless camps under bridges, or they're like, typically homeless camps are like pocketed off into heavily wooded areas. But he was like, man, I wasn't the only one who saw that shit either. But it's like he said half of these homeless people, man, he's like, they're on drugs. He was, and he's like, honestly, I never touch drugs. He goes, I smoke like a damn chimney, but he's like, I don't touch drugs. And honestly, he didn't look like it. Like, he didn't look like a druggie, and he did come to buy cigarettes out of the gas station that I work at. But he was like, man, I smoke, I don't do drugs. But he's like, bro, that wolf on two legs, because I started asking him, I'm like, well, how big was it? Did it have a tail? He said, hey, man, he said, fucking Andre the Giant, bro. He was like, if this thing had to be as tall, if not taller than fucking Andre the Giant. He was like, you know the wrestler Andre? I'm like, yeah, I'm a wrestling fan. He's like, man, that this thing could have squared up with Andre straight up, bro. He was like, I don't know. He's like, what the fuck? He's like, and he started opening the cigarettes as he was talking. He's like, bro, he's like, I don't know what the fuck I saw, man. And he was like, I didn't stay in that camp. He was like, honestly, I was going to stay in that camp. But he was like, after I saw that shit, he was like, fuck that. I'm not. He was like, honestly, I won't even go into the woods no more. And I asked him, I was like, well, where exactly? I'm like, how did the other homeless people react? He said, honestly, dude, he said the people in the camp, some of them were tweaked out. So I don't even know if they were all there to even notice this thing. And he was like, honestly, most of the people in the camp were calm, as if they never saw it. He was like, so I'm wondering if this thing fucking like snuck in and just snatched somebody. Because he was like, man, the arms on this thing were hella long. So if it wanted to, it could have hid in a bush. And them tents, man, he goes, the tents for us, them things are raggedy. They got holes in them and shit. So if anything, he's like, bro, the fucking arms are longer than it's, go past its knees. He's like, honestly, it won't take much for this thing to like hide in a bush or behind a fucking tree or whatever and snatch somebody that's laying in a sleeping bag. So he's like, I wouldn't be surprised if that thing snuck in there and snatched up the person closest to the edge of the camp without anybody noticing. But he was like, there was some people nearby me who saw that shit too. And one of them, he goes, what tripped me out is one of them was like, oh, he was like, not again. And he was like, yo, bro, what the fuck you mean not again? So it's like he's, which made me wonder, like, is this a norm? Like, like how many times has this thing been, is this thing feeding off of, I didn't even want to think about it. I was like, all right, that and he was like, man, he was like, look, I'm gonna share a couple more things with you. He was like, bro, honestly, being homeless, and people don't realize this, but we're out all night. Because we don't have a home, we're out here with the elements, man. He was like, the shit we see, like when y'all are asleep 3, 4, 5 in the morning in your beds before your alarm clock go off. He goes, bro, we're roaming the freeways. We're roaming the streets. So we see shit that y'all are not going to see. And because we're homeless and because most of us are on drugs, and he was like, I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of us, sometimes I smell like shit. But, people don't consider the shit we see. And honestly, who are we going to tell, bro? He was like, I don't know if you believe me or not. And, he was like, he was like, people are not going to believe us, man. I was like, damn. And honestly, because I asked him, because, he comes in and I don't know, I just had a gut feeling. I was like, man, you're homeless. I didn't say like, hey, you're homeless, but because he's homeless, I had to, my gut feeling was like, ask him if he's seen any, like what crazy shit has he seen, out on the streets. And that just led down into the stuff that he's sharing with me. Now, something else he shared with me, he said one time, man, in a different camp, not the one where that wolf man thing was carrying people off. He said, nah, another camp. He said, I had got a used tent from somebody. He said, bro, he goes, I shit you not. One day, there's this dude whose tent was right next to mine. This dude, mind you, the tent was wide open so I could see. There was nobody. He's like, I had to pass his tent to get to mine, and I saw that nobody was in his tent. He said, bro, I got my tent open. I'm chilling, because like the way I'm laying, my head is poking out of the entrance of the tent. The rest of my body is in the tent. He said, I'm just laying there, chilling, staying warm. He said, I see this dude come back to his tent from wherever he was. And he said, this dude looked tore up, man. Like, but he's homeless. I mean, 9 times out of 10, we look tore up. So, but he's like, no, this dude looked like he was down bad. I say, what's up to him? He didn't even say anything to me. He goes into his tent and he zips it up. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe he's a tweaker or whatever. He goes, and he pauses, and he's like, dog. And meanwhile, he's smoking at this point. Not at the gas station, but, we kind of like walk off. He's like, bro, I'm going to tell you. He was like, because I was on my break, just to put that. I didn't leave the register. I was on my break. We walked away from the gas station, so he could have a smoke. But he was like, hey, man. He goes, and he hesitates. He goes, hey, man, I heard 2 people in his tent talking. And at this point, he's starting to shake a little bit. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could tell he's getting goosebumps. And I was too. Matter of fact, retelling his stories, I'm getting goosebumps right now. He said, hey man, nobody was in that man's tent. This man comes back to wherever he come from. He gets into the tent, zips it up. And I hear this man having a full-blown conversation and somebody's responding. Hey, he was like, I asked him, I was like, first of all, I'm processing all this. I'm like, okay, hold on. I said 2 people in the tent. He goes, 2 people, bro. This dude is arguing with somebody in that tent. I didn't see nobody else come in that tent, man. So I asked him, I said, okay, well, what did the other voice sound like? Man, he was like, honestly, bro, it was a deep voice. It sounded manly. It sounded like another man, but
He was like, honestly, it was in another language. He's like, I don't know what to make of that. You know, he said, to be honest with you, he was like, I got up and left that fucking tent, man. He was like, to this day, I don't have a fucking tent. He was like, I left that shit in the camp. I got up and I walked out. He was like, man, that's 2 homeless camps now. You know, one got a wolf man, the other, I don't even know what to make of that shit. I don't know. He was like, was he a magician or some shit? I was like, I wouldn't call it that. I would not call it a magician, but he was like, I don't know if it was a magic trick or he was fucking with me. He was like, but man, I heard 2 people in that damn tent, bro. I was like, damn, I was honest with him. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm like, everything you're telling me right now, like, I don't even know how to process it. And he was like, bro, he was like, I'm gonna tell you. He was like, I got 2 more for you. He was like, and some of these I got witnesses on, like the wolf man. I got witnesses on the 2 people in the tent. I don't know if anybody else heard it. Matter of fact, I didn't even ask, bro. He's like, I've met some cool people in my years of being homeless, like some hella cool people. But I've also seen some scary shit, bro, that would fuck up any. He was like, it will fuck anybody up, bro. Like, any sane person. He's like, man. He was like, all right, look, I got 2 more for you. He's like, I'm gonna tell these 2 that I'm gonna get on. He was like, he's at speaking. He's like, all right, so I heard 2 people talking in that tent, right? So one time, you know, I'm talking to this dude. Um, it's another homeless dude I'm talking to. And mind you, this is at night. Again, at night. You know, the guy with the 2 people talking in the tent, it wasn't night yet, but it was like evening. You know what I mean? So the wolf thing was at night. The 2 people talking in the tent, it was like evening. He said this one and the coyote was at night. He said, bro, I was talking to this man, the homeless man, in passing, by the way. I stopped to just grab a sandwich. I had collected a couple bucks. And he's like, man, I stopped to talk to this man because he just looked, I don't know, like, I'm homeless, he's homeless. I was like, fuck it, make conversation while I eat. He goes, bro, I'm talking to this man. And at first, the conversation starts off normal. He goes, dog, I don't know. He was like, I don't know if I said something to piss him off, but I will say this. He was talking about how his situation was bad and, that he's thinking that he's tired of being homeless, but he doesn't think he's ever going to make it out, blah, blah, blah. And how he been through dark shit in his life. And he was like, honestly, I was trying to give him good advice. He's like, I shit you not, bro. I mentioned God because I was like, man, God got a plan for all of us. At this point, his eyes start to water. He goes, dog, multiple voices came out this one person, man. He was like, he said, after I told him that, God got a plan for all of us, when he responded, it was like 3-4 people in one person and all the voices were coming out at once. And he stopped. And, I gave him a second to, so he could process, because I could tell that he was reliving this. And I'm not asking him when exactly, because I know being homeless, when you travel and you've been homeless for years, you lose track of time, honestly. And so I asked him, I was like, well, about what time of night? He was like, man, I don't remember. He was like, it could have been hella late. It could have been 9 o'clock for all I know. It could have been midnight at that point in time. He's like, I wasn't too sure. But, if you got a sandwich, I would probably say it was probably like 9, 10 o'clock. Because a lot of restaurants close at like 10, a little bit after. But he was like, man, I asked him, I was like, well, what did he say to you? And then he was just like, I was like, man, I don't even want to talk about it. He was like, I'll give you one more. And I honestly, it's like, as curious as I am, I really did want to know what did the guy say to him and how did that conversation end, but he didn't even want to. I could tell that he's been giving me stories back to back, like real quick stories, because mind you, I'm on my lunch break. Luckily, I get an hour lunch break. At my job at the gas station, we get hour lunch breaks. But I could tell him recollecting all these stories and, one after another, it was starting to take its toll. So I was like, all right, I was like, did you, would you like to tell one more or, and he was like, all right, man. He was like, I'm going to tell you this last one. And he was like, I'm going to go. I'm going to go. I was like, all right, man. I was like, I know this stuff is heavy. He was like, honestly, bro, he said, you the first person that's not homeless that I've talked to about this, because he's like, some of us, we get together, like some of the cool dudes I meet, we get together and we share stories, man. He's like, I'm not the only one with some crazy ass shit that I've seen. He was like, you might want to talk to more homeless people, bro. He's like, the stuff you would probably hear from them will blow your mind. Like, what I'm telling you is crazy. He's like, nah, you ain't heard crazy yet. Which, honestly, that part scared me, because what he's telling me so far, the encounters that he's told me so far, is already mind-blowing to me. But to hear that he has heard even crazier, it's like, oh, man. But he was like, yeah, there was a cat that was from New Orleans, bro. He was like, he had some crazy stories. He's like, but that's not my place to tell another man's story. So I was like, and I was like, all right, I feel it. I'm like, besides, he's like, the shit I'm sharing, bro. He's like, honestly. But anyway, he tells me this last encounter. He said, bro, one day, he said, I didn't talk to this guy. I just saw him passing by. Mind you, this is during the daytime. I saw this dude. I don't know if he was homeless or not. It was just a regular guy. He was passing by. He was walking by, bro, in an alley. Like, I was passing by in the alley. It was just me and him. Me and him. There was an alleyway. I wanted to do a shortcut to get on the other side of where I was. This man was walking, and his shadow was moving by itself, bro. I was like, what? He was like, his shadow, man. His shadow was like walking behind him, not like it wasn't attached to him. How where the sun, it depending on where the sun is, it attaches at your feet, and it, he's like, bro, this fucking shadow was on the wall, walking behind this dude, not attached. Not fucking attached, man. So I was like, okay, wait. I'm like, what did you do? I'm like, this dude passed you by. You're passing this dude in the alley. You see that his shadow. I'm like, he was like, bro. He said, I put my head down and I walked as fast as I could, because he's like, dog, he's like, listen to me. Imagine you're walking next to a wall, and he said, your shadow is walking next to you as if you're a person, man. Like, the shadow's feet he was like, I can't explain that shit. But this shadow, he said, the fucking shadow waved at me, man. And the guy that was walking didn't even look back at me once. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, yo. I'm like, so the shadow didn't try to attack you? Did it look evil? He was like, nah, man. He was like, fuck. It was the guy's shadow, but it wasn't. It's like, it was a whole nother person, but in shadow mode. And it was independent. Like the guy himself did not have a shadow at all. And if that thing was his shadow, he's like, I don't know, man. He's like, I really don't know. He said, I hit that corner, man. And he said, I just took off, bro. He's like, I didn't, once that fucking shadow waved at me, I almost lost my shit, But once again, who am I going to share it with besides other people like me? He's like, I ain't never seen that dude again. The dude left the alley. I put my head down. That thing waved at me. I sped walk all the way to the end, turn that corner. He was like, bro, he's like, fuck woods, fuck alleyways. He was like, I won't even go on the freeway at night. He was like, I try to find like a shelter or something, man. I try to be somewhere public that's, he's like, but talk to more homeless people. He was like, you got a podcast going and stuff. I wish I had a phone or something to listen to it, man. But he was like, look, you can share my stories on your podcast or, not share them. It's up to you. But I'm just telling you what I've seen out here and what other people like me, homeless people like me, they seen some crazier shit. Just as crazy, more crazy. He's like, bro, he's like, it's a fucked up world we live in. And he's like, mind you, I'm not on drugs, never touched drugs, but I smoke like a chimney, and basically, long story short, I end the convo, get off my lunch, and then I jotted everything down in notes in my phone to share with you guys, but it's a lot. Like me even retelling you his stories, it's a lot, man. It's a lot. So I'm gonna leave it there. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. And please, if you have had an encounter, anybody that has had encounters or an encounter, please do not hesitate on contacting me. Email me, join the Facebook group, follow me on Instagram. You can be anonymous. Whatever you need to make you feel safe sharing your encounter, I will accommodate it. Seriously, just, because like the homeless guy said, like, who am I going to talk to? Who's going to believe me? And there's a lot of people who's not even homeless who feels that way. Who's going to believe me? I can't talk to a therapist. I can't talk to a cop about this shit. I can't talk to, my pastor about it. I can't talk to my own family. So please don't hesitate hitting me up, emailing me. But let me know what you guys think. I want to thank you guys for tuning in and listening. It means a lot. So I will catch you guys in the next episode. I know that's a lot, and that's why I saved the homeless guy's stories for last. It's a lot to process. Hope I didn't scare you too bad. Catch you guys in the next episode.